I just touched the plate, my mother's favorite. I was 19, and the tears just came. In front of everyone. My stepmother slapped me. My father did nothing. Then, my Aunt Lisa stood up, holding an old wooden box. "If everyone wants to forget my sister," she said, her voice pure ice. "We open this tonight." I didn't know what was inside, only that this box would expose every lie about my mother's death and tear our fake family apart. My name is Aubrey Snow, and I am sitting in a graveyard. It looks like a dining room. It's the grand, formal dining room of the Riverton Hills house, the one with the soaring ceilings and the French doors that open onto the bluffs overlooking the river. But it's a graveyard. Every piece of heavy, dark wood furniture, every silk drape, every crystal glass catching the light of the absurdly large chandelier. It was all chosen by my mother, and the woman sitting at the head of the table, smiling like a queen, is the one who buried her. I am almost 28 years old. I haven't been back for a family dinner in over 2 years. The air is thick with the smell of roasted lamb and Veronica's perfume, a heavy gardenia scent that always seemed designed to cover up the smell of decay. At the head of the table, Veronica Hart, my stepmother, raises her glass. Her blonde hair is pulled into a flawless chignon, not a single strand out of place. She is beautiful, in the expensive, curated way of women who have never had to work for anything they couldn't first charm or steal. "To family," she says, her voice smooth as cream, "and to new beginnings." The cluster of relatives, mostly my father's cousins and their spouses, murmur their agreement. They are all here to orbit Veronica's son. My father, Dale Hart, sits to her right. He looks smaller than I remember him, his shoulders slumped. He meets my gaze for a fraction of a second, then looks away, focusing intently on his water glass, as if it holds the secrets to the universe. He's been doing that for 7 years. Across from me, my Aunt Lisa sips her wine, Lisa Monroe, my mother's younger sister. She is the only person here who sees the room for what it is. She is quiet, always has been, but her eyes miss nothing. They are my mother's eyes, sharp and intelligent, and tonight they are fixed on Veronica with a cold, patient clarity. This dinner is a farce. It's a performance of Veronica's complete and total control. 7 years ago, my mother, Eleanor Hart, died of a sudden stroke in her sleep. 6 months after that, Veronica, who had been my mother's ambitious assistant, was Veronica Hart, the new mistress of the house, and as it turned out, the sole inheritor of the Hart estate, including my mother's life's work. A new maid, someone I don't recognize, pushes through the swinging door from the kitchen. She is carrying the main course, and she is serving it on my mother's plates. My breath catches. It's not just any set. It's the Blue Orchard Studio collection, the delicate, hand-painted blue flowers on white porcelain. My mother designed them. She built the Blue Orchard Studio from nothing, a craftswoman who turned her passion into an empire. This set was her first major success, her heart translated into clay and glaze. Veronica, naturally, has taken credit for revitalizing the brand after my mother's death. The maid sets the plate in front of me. The blue flowers are so vivid, so precise. I can see my mother's hands, dusted with white clay, carefully painting the pattern. I can smell the wet earth of her studio. Without thinking, my fingers graze the rim. It's cool, smooth, and just like that, I'm not almost 28, I'm 19 again. It's the week after the funeral. The house is still full of the sickly sweet smell of lilies. I am walking through this same dining room, numb, a ghost in my own home. I see the plates, stacked on the sideboard, waiting to be put away. I pick one up. I trace the flowers, and the dam of my composure, held so tightly for days, just breaks. I'm not sobbing, not wailing. It's just tears. Silent, hot tears streaming down my face for the woman who made these plates, who made me. The kitchen door flies open. Veronica stands there, her face a mask of impatience. "What are you doing?" I can't speak. I just shake my head, clutching the plate. She strides over, her heels clicking angrily on the hardwood. Are you serious? Aubrey? Still? The funeral is over. We have guests. She's not my stepmother yet. Not officially. But she's already the one in charge. It was her favorite, I managed to whisper. That's when she snaps. She snatches the plate from my hand and shoves it onto the sideboard. Then her hand clamps down on my arm. Her nails dig in. You stop it, she hisses, her voice low and venomous, pulling me toward the kitchen, away from the prying eyes of the living room. Once we're through the door, she shoves me against the stainless steel refrigerator. I'm 19 years old, an adult, but I feel like a child. You will not stand out there and perform for sympathy, she spits, her face inches from mine. She's gone. Crying over a piece of ceramic isn't going to bring her back, and it just makes everyone uncomfortable. You are an adult. Stop acting like a spoiled brat. And then, she slaps me. A hard, stinging crack across the face that echoes in the sterile kitchen. My head whips to the side, the shock colder than the steel at my back. Before I can even react, her hand is on my arm again, squeezing, gripping the muscle so tightly I know it will bruise. You want to cry? She whispers, her perfect face twisted with a rage I've never seen. Cry about this. Cry about how you're living under my roof now, eating my food. Your little drama days are over. Do you understand me? I stare at her, mute, the tears instantly dried by sheer terror and humiliation. My father walks in right at that moment. He sees me pressed against the refrigerator. Veronica's hand still clamped on my arm, my cheek flaming red. He sees it. What's going on? He asks, his voice weak. Veronica lets go of me instantly, her expression flipping to one of concerned frustration. Oh, Dale, thank goodness. She's hysterical. She's still crying about those old plates. I was just trying to calm her down. She's making a scene. I look at my father, my one remaining parent, my eyes pleading with him to see the truth, to see the mark on my face, to defend me. He looks from me to her, and then he sighs, a deep, tired sound. He rubs his temples. Aubrey, he says, not looking at me. Veronica is right. It's hard on everyone. Please, just go upstairs. Try to pull yourself together. The betrayal is a physical blow, harder than the slap. I am an ungrateful freeloader. I am the problem. He chose her, right there, over me. Please don't cry again. Veronica's voice snaps me back to the present. She's looking at me, a tiny fake smile on her lips. You're not a child. The table is silent. I realize my hand is still on the plate. I pull it back as if burned. One of my father's cousins, a man with a booming voice and a face flushed from wine, lets out a laugh. Well, Eleanor had good taste. I'll give her that. Left you with a hell of a collection. Veronica, left you with everything, didn't she? The table erupts in polite, sycophantic laughter. They are laughing about my mother's legacy, about how it was all passed to this usurper. I feel the same hot shame from that day in the kitchen. They are trampling on her memory, and my father is sitting right there, letting them. He's meticulously cutting his lamb, avoiding my gaze, avoiding Lisa's gaze. He's pretending not to hear, just like he pretended not to see the slap. And then, a new sound. The scrape of a chair leg on the hardwood floor. It's so loud in the suddenly quiet room that everyone stops. Aunt Lisa is standing. She doesn't slam her chair back. She pushes it back with a slow, deliberate motion. She is holding a small, old-fashioned wooden box. It's dark, polished wood, maybe mahogany, with no carvings. Just a simple brass latch. I have never seen it before in my life. She places it on the table, gently, but it lands with the finality of a gavel. We have let this go wrong for too long, she says. Her voice is soft, but it cuts through the clinking of silver and crystal. The air in the room freezes, solidifies. Every eye is on her, on the box. Veronica is the first to recover. She lets out a light, airy laugh. but it's brittle. Lisa, darling, what is this? More party games? What are you playing now? This isn't a game, Veronica, Lisa says, her eyes locked on my stepmother. I'm looking at the box. A cold thrill, a mixture of terror and hope, runs up my spine. I know, with absolute certainty, that whatever is in that box is the reason I was summoned here tonight. It's the thing that can change everything. My sister, Lisa says, her voice gaining strength, addressing the whole table, gave this to her attorney a few days after her funeral. The attorney gave it to me. More of Eleanor's little secrets? Veronica scoffs, though her knuckles are white where she grips her wine glass. Her instructions were very specific, Lisa continues, ignoring her. I was to keep it sealed, and I was only to open it if you, Veronica, ever crossed a line with Aubrey. The implication hangs in the air. You just crossed it. Veronica's face goes pale beneath the perfect makeup. That is absurd. You are fabricating this. This is slander. Is it? Lisa asks. Veronica stands up, lunging across the corner of the table, her hand outstretched. Give me that. That is Hart property. That is my property. Sit down. The voice is my father's. It's not a shout, but it's sharp. He's looking at Veronica, his face a confused, flustered mask. Let Lisa finish. It's the first time in 7 years. The first time he hasn't immediately, automatically, taken her side. Veronica freezes, her hand hovering over the box, her mouth open. She looks at him, shocked. I look at the scene. This isn't a family dinner. It never was. This is a trial. This is the first hearing. That plate, the one I was slapped for, is Exhibit A. It's the proof of my entire life under her thumb. And that box, in my aunt's steady hands, is the star witness. Aunt Lisa rests her hand on the wooden lid. She looks at me, then at Veronica, then at my father. She takes a breath. This is the moment it all started. From one of my mother's plates to a reckoning that would expose an entire network of lies. Before the graveyard, there was the studio. My mother, Eleanor Hart, lived in a world of dust, not the dead, gray dust of neglect, but a fine, white powder that covered everything, her clothes, her hair, the floor, the air itself. It was the dust of clay, of potential. She was the founder, creator, and beating heart of Heartlight Ceramics, to the outside world, especially the wealthy enclaves of the East Coast. Heartlight was a status symbol. Our house was filled with orders from politicians, celebrities, and old money families who wanted the Heartlight dinner service, specifically, the cobalt blue floral pattern that had become her signature. To me, it was just Mom. She was warm, her hands always smelling of earth and tea. She was the one who taught me how to see. Objects keep secrets, Aubrey, she'd tell me, her hands guiding a spinning lump of wet clay on the wheel. A house remembers arguments, a chair knows who sat in it, and a dinner plate. She'd tap a finished one, making it sing. A plate remembers every conversation, every laugh, every secret whispered across it. She believed that she poured her life into those plates, and our life was good. My father, Dale, ran Heartline Developments, his own construction company. He was busy, often distant, but he seemed to adore her. Our home was filled with light and the scent of the kiln firing up in the carriage house. Then, when I was about 16, Veronica arrived. She wasn't the dragon she would become. She was just Veronica, 24, fresh out of business school, and brimming with digital age confidence. Mom hired her as a business assistant. Heartlight was growing too fast, and Mom, an artist at her core, was drowning in the logistics of online markets and high-end restaurant contracts. Veronica was sharp, sleek, and knew all the right words. Brand synergy, market penetration, scaling. Mom was impressed. Dad was, too. Veronica started staying for dinner. She'd laugh at Dad's jokes, her laugh a bright, tinkling sound that was nothing like Mom's rich, deep chuckle. She'd compliment Mom's designs, calling her a visionary, and then turn to Dad and talk about stock portfolios. I didn't like her. It was a teenaged, instinctual thing. She was too polished. Her smiles too quick to form and too quick to fade. "She's just ambitious, honey," Mom told me once when I complained. I was ambitious too. Everyone deserves to be trusted until they prove they shouldn't be. That was my mother's operating principle, and it was her fatal flaw. Around that time, Mom started getting tired. It began with headaches she blamed on the kiln fumes. Then it was a deep, pervasive fatigue that even her beloved tea couldn't fix. She started spending afternoons in bed instead of the studio. "Just stress," she'd say, forcing a smile. "Just blood pressure." Dad arranged for her to see specialists at North River Wellness Group, the expensive private medical system all of Riverton Hills used. They ran tests. They always came back with the same answers. Stress, high blood pressure, nothing a little rest and medication wouldn't fix. While Mom rested, Veronica stepped up. It was only natural. She wasn't just an assistant anymore. She was an indispensable project manager. She took over the Heartlight financials, assuring Mom not to worry her pretty head about the contracts. Dad was busy with a new high-rise project for Heartline, so he was grateful. "Thank God for Veronica," he'd say at dinner. "She's holding this whole place together." Veronica was always there, a silent, smiling shadow, bringing Mom her pills, sitting with Dad on the porch while Mom napped, reviewing invoices at the kitchen island, her pen scratching with furious efficiency. I was 19 and packing my bags for design school in California when I got the acceptance letter. I felt a sharp pang of guilt, leaving Mom when she was so frail, but she wouldn't hear of it. She sat up in bed, her hands looking thin against the comforter, and held my face. "You go," she insisted, her eyes clear for the first time in months. "You go, and you build your own world. Don't you dare put your dreams on hold for me. This is just a bad patch." The last time I saw her, I was standing in her bedroom doorway. She was looking out the window, at her studio. She looked back at me and smiled. "I told Lisa," she said, her voice a little thin. "If anything ever happens, don't let Heartlight fall into the hands of someone who doesn't understand family." I didn't know what she meant. I hugged her, promised to call, and left for the coast. 3 months later, I got the call from my father. It was a stroke, massive, in her sleep. No one saw it coming. She was gone. The funeral was a blur. It happened too fast. Veronica handled everything. The arrangements, the obituaries, the medical records. It was efficient, cold, and flawless. The house was full of flowers and whispers, but my mother wasn't in any of it. Then came the day after, the reading of the will. We sat in the formal living room, me, my father, Aunt Lisa, and the family lawyer, Richard Cole, a man who looked like his face was made of old parchment, and Veronica, sitting next to my father, her hand resting on his arm. Richard Cole read from the document. It was, he said, the latest and most recent will, signed by Eleanor Hart, just 2 months before her death. It was a complete and total massacre. The house in Riverton Hills, the entire Heartlight Ceramics brand, including all designs, contracts, and the studio, the bulk of the liquid assets, the stocks, the savings, all of it went to Veronica. Aunt Lisa made a choked sound, as if she'd been punched. My father, it was explained, kept his own company, Heartline Developments, and me? I was granted a generous educational trust fund, enough to cover my tuition and basic living expenses, provided I remained a student in good standing. A small allowance, from my mother's empire. "That's not," Aunt Lisa's voice was shaking, her face white with rage. "That is not what she wanted. Eleanor would never—" "Lisa," Richard Cole cut her off, his voice smooth and cold. "The document is ironclad. It was signed, witnessed, and notarized. Eleanor was of sound mind, though, as her medical records show, she was struggling with significant instability. Veronica, as her primary caretaker, was the logical choice to manage the estate." "Instability?" You're calling her unstable? Lisa was on her feet. Lisa, please, my father said, his voice hollow. He wouldn't look at her. He wouldn't look at me. He just stared at the floor. This is what she wanted. Let's just get through this. Lisa looked at him, and her expression was pure contempt. She grabbed her purse and walked out, slamming the front door so hard a vase rattled on the mantel. Veronica put her hand on my father's back, rubbing circles. It's all right, darling. It's a shock for everyone. That night was the first time I truly broke. It was the night of the plate. I was in the dining room, the house suffocatingly quiet, and I saw them, the blue orchard plates, stacked on the sideboard. I picked one up. I felt the glaze, the smooth, cool ceramic. This was my mother. This was everything she was, and it had all been given to the woman who sat beside her, smiling, while her life was draining away. The tears came, hot, silent, and angry. Are you serious, Aubrey? I turned. Veronica stood in the kitchen doorway, a glass of wine in her hand. It was her favorite, I whispered, the same words I would say in my memory for 7 years. She snatched the plate from me. Stop it. You will not stand out here and perform for sympathy. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in, and dragged me into the kitchen. You are 19 years old, not a child. Stop acting like one. She shoved me against the refrigerator, and she slapped me. It was the humiliation that burned more than the sting. It was the complete dismissal, the absolute power she held. Her hand shot out again, not to hit, but to grab. She squeezed my upper arm, hard, a vicious, pinching grip. You want to play the victim? She hissed, her face close. You want to cry about money? Is that it? I should get my phone right now. I'll record this. I'll show your father and everyone else what a pathetic little drama queen you are, trying to play for money. My father walked in. He saw my face. He saw her hand on my arm. What's going on? Veronica let go, her face melting into a mask of maternal concern. Oh, Dale, she's hysterical. About those old plates. I was just trying to calm her down. He looked at me, my cheek red, my eyes wide with shock and hate, and he chose. Aubrey, he said, and the exhaustion in his voice was a death knell for our relationship. Veronica is right. You're being too sensitive. You're making this harder on everyone. If you keep creating this drama, we'll have to reconsider that education fund. Now, go upstairs. I left. I went upstairs, packed a bag, and walked out of my mother's house. I didn't take the fund. I flew back to California, got 2 jobs, and worked my way through school. I cut ties with all of them. The only person I spoke to was Aunt Lisa. She met me for coffee a month later, her eyes still holding that same fury from the will reading. She was working with another lawyer, Aubrey, Lisa told me, her voice low. A different one, not Cole. She was changing everything. She was scared. She told me she had papers. But by the time I thought to look for them, after the funeral, they were gone. Everything was gone. For 7 years, I lived with that. The slap, the threat, the disappeared papers. I built a life, a small one, as a freelance designer. But I was haunted by the smell of clay, the image of a blue-flowered plate, and the sick, sure knowledge that my mother's death and her will were both a lie. And now, I was back in that dining room, looking at that same plate. I looked at the box Aunt Lisa had placed on the table, the box her lawyer had given her, to be opened if Veronica ever crossed a line with me. The muzzling, the threats, the gaslighting, the public humiliation over a plate, all of it came rushing back. I looked at the box, and I wondered, was this it? Was this the legacy that had disappeared? The one my mother had tried to leave me, before Veronica buried her and stole her life? The box didn't just appear, it was summoned. The events that led to my return to Riverton Hills, to that dining room, started a week earlier. I was in my small apartment in Lakewood City. A life I had cobbled together from freelance interior design gigs and a stubborn refusal to be broken. I was alone. I was solvent. And I was, for the most, at peace. Then the email arrived. It was from Western Crest Bank, an institution I hadn't thought about in years. The subject line was "Unusual activity on your account." I assumed it was spam, a phishing attempt, but the email body addressed me by name, and it referenced an account I didn't know I had. The Eleanor Hart Trust. I sat there, staring at the screen. My mother's name. A trust. According to Richard Cole and the will that had disinherited me, every single asset, every account, had been consolidated and transferred to Veronica. I called the bank's fraud department. A polite, bored-sounding man named Kevin answered. I gave him the reference number. "Okay, Ms. Snow, I see the account here," he said, his voice instantly changing. The boredom was gone. He sounded tense. "This is an older account, a trust. It's been frozen for several years." "Frozen? Why?" "Standard procedure. Looks like pending probate. But the probate appears to have closed 7 years ago. This shouldn't still be active." I heard him typing furiously. "The listed beneficiary on this account is Aubrey Snow." My heart did a painful, lurching flip. "That's me. What was the unusual activity?" "Well, that's the flag. Ma'am, there's been no activity, no withdrawals, no deposits, nothing, since before the primary account holder's death. But this morning, at 9:03 a.m., the system logged a high-level access request. Not a login, but an administrative query. It was attempting to verify beneficiary status." A cold dread settled in my stomach. Who was trying to access it? "That's the other flag. Ma'am, the request originated from an IP address registered to a private residence in Riverton Hills." My old home. Veronica's house. "Kevin," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "that account was supposed to have been transferred, as part of my mother's estate, to Veronica Hart. Can you tell me if it was?" There was a long pause, more typing. "Ma'am, I can't seem to find any transfer order on this account. It's just sitting here, frozen. But that query this morning, honestly, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. It's above my pay grade. Can you please hold while I check with a supervisor?" I said yes. I waited. The hold music was a terrible synthesized version of a pop song. 5 minutes passed. 10. When Kevin came back, his voice was different. It was the sterile, official, unhelpful voice of customer service. "Ma'am, thank you for holding. It appears that was a simple system error, a database glitch. The account in question is, in fact, closed and consolidated as per the estate's executor. The email you received was sent in error. We apologize for any confusion. Please disregard it." A glitch? Kevin, you just said... "I'm sorry, ma'am. That's all the information I have for you. The account is closed. Have a wonderful day." He hung up. I sat in the quiet of my apartment, my pulse hammering in my throat. It wasn't a glitch. It was a cover-up. Someone was digging, and in response, someone at the bank had just slammed the door. That night, my phone rang. It was an unlisted number. I almost never answer those. But on instinct, I did. "Hello?" Silence. Just a faint, dry static, like wind blowing through dead leaves. I was about to hang up when a voice crackled through the line. It was a woman, her voice old, papery, and terrified. A whisper. "Don't let her get all your mother's plates." "I'm sorry, who is this?" "The studio," the voice rasped. Don't let her touch the studio." "Who are you? What are you talking about?" The line clicked. She was gone. I stared at the phone. It was a prank. It had to be. A sick, twisted prank. But the words, "your mother's plates," "the studio," it was too specific. I looked at my call history. The number wasn't unlisted after all. The caller ID had registered it. My blood went ice cold. It was the landline for the Hart House in Riverton Hills. A number I hadn't seen in 7 years, but knew as well as my own. My fingers were shaking, but I hit call back. A robotic voice answered immediately. "The number you have dialed is not a working number. Please check the number and try again." I called it 3 more times. The same message. A ghost had called me from a dead phone line. The next morning, I called the only person I trusted. My best friend, Maddie Rhodes. Maddie was a lifestyle reporter for the local Riverline Daily, which meant she mostly wrote about new restaurants and art exhibits, but she had the soul of an investigative journalist. I told her everything: the email, the nervous bank teller, the ghost call. She was quiet for a long time. "Aubrey," she said finally, "this is a lot. A call from a disconnected number? An account that's both frozen and closed?" "I know how it sounds. Maddie, I sound crazy, but I'm not. Something is happening." Okay, I believe you. I mean, I'm skeptical, but I'm also intrigued. The stolen ceramics legacy, that's a hell of a story. Let me poke around, discreetly, see if I can find anything on Western Crest Bank or North River Wellness. Just be careful. Bree, this is your family. It's messy. Her words were still ringing in my ears when my phone buzzed with a text message. My stomach dropped. The name on the screen was one I had blocked, deleted, and tried to forget. Veronica. I opened it against my better judgment. The message was nauseating. "Aubrey, darling, I know it's been far too long. Your father and I miss you terribly. I was just meeting with our lawyers, reviewing some old estate matters, and I had an idea. I think it might be time for us to discuss redistributing some of your mother's assets, a more formal arrangement. Would you come to dinner? This Saturday? Just family." Just family. The words were a threat. It was so fake, so cloyingly sweet, so utterly unlike the woman who had slapped me for crying. A redistribution? After 7 years of nothing? She was luring me. My first instinct was to delete it, to throw my phone against the wall. But then, another message came in. This one was from Aunt Lisa. "Aubrey, your father is coming to dinner on Saturday. Veronica invited him, but I'm coming too. Something's different. I think your father is finally starting to doubt what he signed all those years ago. He's been asking questions. Don't respond to her. But you need to be there. I'm bringing the one thing your sister left me." Suddenly, it all clicked into place. This wasn't a dinner. It was a summit, a confrontation. Veronica felt something shifting, felt my father asking questions, and she was calling me in to shut me down, to buy me off with a more formal arrangement. And Aunt Lisa was planning to counterattack. I was still reeling when I remembered something. A box of my mother's old things I kept under my bed. I pulled it out, sifting through old letters, sketches, a few small, chipped pots, and there it was, a small, framed photo of me and Mom in the studio, both of us covered in clay. I turned it over. Taped to the cardboard backing was a single, folded piece of paper. On it, in my mother's elegant script, North Shore Storage, Unit 31B, and below it, a 6-digit code. She had rented a small unit to store her experimental pieces, the ones she said were too wild for the Heartlight brand. I had completely forgotten. I was at North Shore Storage within an hour. The place smelled like dust and concrete. A bored-looking manager typed my mother's name into the system. "Ah, Eleanor Hart," he said, squinting at the screen. "Yeah, that account was liquidated. 6 years ago, unit was cleared out and re-rented. Looks like a..." Veronica Hart signed the release forms. Of course, my heart sank. Veronica had been thorough. She had erased every trace. "Wait a minute," the manager said, clicking again. "That's weird. She had 2 units?" "2? Yeah, a big one. That's the one that's gone. But there's a second one, a small document locker, still active, rented under Lisa Monroe, and it's paid up in full for the next 10 years. Lisa Monroe? Yeah, and, that's a new one. The access code on Ms. Monroe's locker is listed as a secondary validation on Ms. Hart's old unit. He looked at me. You got the code? I gave him the 6 digits from the back of the photo frame. He typed it in. Well, that's the one. So, the locker is in Ms. Monroe's name, but it's linked to your mother's code. You want to see it? He led me down a sterile white hallway to a wall of small metal doors. Unit 31B was a small box, maybe 2 feet high. He used his key. I punched in the code, and the latch clicked open. But I didn't open it. Aunt Lisa's text. I'm bringing the one thing your sister left me. This was it. This was her mother's failsafe. A unit in Lisa's name, locked with a code only I, and presumably Lisa, would find. My mother had set up a dead man's switch. She had planned for this. I closed the locker door. You know what? I'll wait for my aunt. She's the primary on the account. I walked out of that storage facility knowing, with chilling certainty, that my mother hadn't just died. She had been erased, and she had fought back. The night before the dinner, one final piece fell into place, another email. This one was from a burner address, a string of random numbers. The subject line was one sentence. Don't trust Richard Cole. There was one attachment, a screenshot. It was a heavily redacted internal memo from a law firm I didn't recognize. It discussed a potential review of a colleague, Richard Cole, regarding his creative management of wills for high-net-worth clients. It mentioned undue influence and timely diagnoses of cognitive decline. At the bottom, a handwritten note. Case was quietly dropped after a significant donation was made to the Judicial Fund. I saved the screenshot. I saved the bank email. I made a digital recording of the number not in service message from the ghost call. I texted Veronica back. See you Saturday. I'd love to talk. I was walking into the lion's den, but I wasn't going in unarmed. I thought I was ready for a fight, ready to show them my small, sharp pieces of evidence. I was ready for a shouting match, for legal threats, for more gaslighting. I was not ready for Aunt Lisa, and I was not ready for the box. Aunt Lisa's hand was steady on the box. Veronica was still frozen, half standing, her face pale with fury after my father had silenced her. The other relatives just stared, their forks forgotten, the heavy scent of lamb growing cold. This was no longer a dinner party. It was a deposition. As I was saying, Lisa said, her voice calm in the suffocating silence. Eleanor's instructions were specific, only if she crosses the line with Aubrey. And tonight, she looked at me, her gaze softening for a second. When you used my sister's favorite plate to humiliate her daughter, you crossed the line, Veronica. She clicked the small brass latch. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. She lifted the lid. There was no treasure inside, no piles of jewels, just paper. She pulled out a single, thick manila envelope. It was sealed not with glue, but with a disc of dark blue wax, the kind I hadn't seen since I was a child. And impressed in the center of the wax was the Heartlight Ceramics logo, my mother's signature stylized H. This is theatrical, Lisa, even for you, Veronica spat, trying to regain control. What is that, a high school time capsule? Lisa ignored her. She turned the envelope over. On the back, in the corner, was an embossed seal I didn't recognize. Not Richard Cole's familiar, ostentatious logo. This was different. A stylized mountain peak, and 2 words. Monarch Trail Legal Group. I've never heard of them, my father said, frowning. Neither have I, Veronica said quickly, a little too quickly. It's a fake, a mail-order law firm. Lisa, this is desperate. You are forging documents. They are not a mail-order firm. Veronica, Lisa said. She broke the wax seal with her thumbnail, the snap echoing. Eleanor met with them 3 months before she died. She went alone. She didn't tell Richard Cole. She didn't tell you, Dale, because she was already afraid. Lisa pulled out a thick, heavy stock document, stapled in the corner. This, she said, placing it on the table like a playing card, is Eleanor Hart's last will and testament, the real one, executed 3 weeks before her death. Veronica laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. That's impossible. The will was executed. Richard Cole handled it. It was filed with the court 7 years ago. This is garbage. Is it? Lisa slid it across the table toward my father. Go ahead, Dale, read it. My father picked it up. The silence stretched as he scanned the first page, his brow furrowing. I don't understand. This names Lisa and Aubrey as co-executors. What? Veronica snatched the papers from his hand. She read, her eyes flying across the page, her face draining of all color. It's quite simple, Lisa said, her voice clinical. The Riverton Hills house, the Heartlight Ceramics brand, and all associated intellectual property, along with a majority share of the Hart Family Integrity Fund, a fund I see you've been managing, Veronica, are to be co-managed by myself and Aubrey. Lisa continued, as for you, Veronica, Eleanor was specific. You were to receive a generous annual stipend if, and it's a very big if, you provided continued kindness and demonstrated no spiritual or emotional harm toward me. Lisa's eyes hardened. That was the term. Spiritual harm. This is insane, Veronica shrieked, throwing the papers on the table. She was sick. She was paranoid. She was thorough, Lisa interrupted. She also included an addendum, a violence clause, if you will. It states that if you, Veronica Hart, were ever found to have engaged in physical violence, verbal intimidation, or public defamation against Aubrey, your stipend would be immediately and permanently revoked, and the entire sum redirected to a charitable fund for young ceramic artists. My mind flashed back to the kitchen, the slap, the hand gripping my arm. I should get my phone right now. I'll record this. Veronica hadn't just been threatening me with humiliation. She'd been threatening me to secure her own inheritance. She knew about this clause. It's fake. Veronica was breathing hard. The paper, the ink, it's all fake. Look at the last page. Veronica, I said, my voice hoarse but steady. I pointed at the document. Look at the bottom right corner. She glanced down. I saw it clearly. A stamped, embossed seal from the county court, with a case file number. It looked official. It looked far more official than the flimsy copies Richard Cole had given us, the ones that had disinherited me. Lisa reached back into the box. She also left this for Aubrey. It was a smaller envelope, my name written on the front in my mother's unmistakable, flowing script. My hands were shaking as I took it. It wasn't sealed. I pulled out a single sheet of her thick cotton stationery. My dearest Aubrey, if you are reading this, it means I am gone, and Lisa has opened the box. And if Lisa has opened the box, it means Veronica has done exactly what I was afraid of. She has used my legacy to hurt you. Listen to me. I am not well, but I am not crazy. She is isolating me. She brings me papers to sign. I think she signed Heartlight into debt without my knowledge. She tells Dale I am forgetful, that I am paranoid. But I see her. I see her watching me, watching the accounts. She is hiding my test results. I know it. I went to a different doctor, someone she doesn't know. He said the medication. My eyes scanned down the page, my heart hammering. I have to stop writing. She's coming. I want you to live your life. Go to school. Be brilliant. Do not let her dim you. But Aubrey, if you ever come back to this house, and she uses my plates, my Blue Orchard plates, as a tool to make you feel small, that is the signal, that is the sign for Lisa. If she disrespects my memory so openly, it means she has gone too far, and she must be stopped. I love you more than the clay. Don't let her win. I folded the letter, the tears blurring my vision. It wasn't just a plate. It was a trigger, a dead man's switch left by my mother, waiting for Veronica to finally overplay her hand. What else? I asked Lisa, my voice thick. She pulled out another folder. The other doctor, she slid a thin file across the table. St. August Mercy Clinic. Not from North River Wellness. This is a blood panel. It shows. And I quote, a severe atypical reaction to a high-dosage benzodiazepine, one that she was not officially prescribed, but one that, coincidentally, was the primary anxiety medication the doctors at North River did prescribe, just in a lower dose, right before she died. "She was being poisoned," I whispered. "She was being managed," Lisa corrected, her voice cold as steel. "Monarch Trail." My cousin Paige, who had been silent this whole time, suddenly spoke up, her eyes wide. "Wait, I have heard of them. My old boss at the equity firm, he used them. They don't do wills. They do corporate warfare, hostile takeovers. They're the people you hire when you want to bury someone, legally. They're terrifying, and they're not fake." All eyes snapped to Paige. She shrank back, as if realizing she'd said too much. My father looked utterly lost. He picked up the new will again, his hands shaking. I never saw this, Richard. Richard Cole brought me the papers. He said it was what Eleanor wanted, that she was confused, and Veronica was the only one who could manage things. I just signed. I just wanted the pain to be over. I signed." He looked from Veronica to me, his face crumpled in a dawning, horrified understanding. "She's lying," Veronica shrieked. "All of you! Lisa is lying. Eleanor was my friend. I loved her. I took care of her." "Did you?" Lisa reached into the box one last time. She pulled out a small black USB flash drive. On it, a simple white label in my mother's handwriting. "Eleanor, studio camera." "She left one last thing," Lisa said. "A copy of her studio's security camera footage, the last 2 weeks. She told me she had it, just in case she needed to review her process. She told me to keep it safe." Veronica moved. It wasn't a calculated step. It was a primal, panicked lunge. She scrambled across the table, knocking over a glass of red wine, which bled like a wound across the white tablecloth. Her arm shot out, fingers clawing, not at Lisa, but at the USB drive. "No!" she screamed. "You can't! That's private! That's mine!" Lisa snatched it back. Veronica's fingers closed on empty air. She was half sprawled on the table, her perfect chignon coming undone, her mask of the elegant hostess shattered. She looked like a rabid animal. In my lap, under the table. My phone was propped against my knee, the video camera silently recording her entire desperate lunge. "Get off the table, Veronica," my father said, his voice trembling with a rage I had never heard. He was on his feet. "What is on that drive that makes you act like that?" "It's nothing. It's just her. She was sick. It's private. "We will find out," my father said. "Tomorrow morning, I am going to this Monarch Trail legal group. I am going to verify this document. And if it is real," he stared at her, his face ashen. "If this is real." "You can't!" Veronica scrambled back, pulling herself together, trying to find her footing. "You can't. They're closed. They shut down years ago. They're gone." The room went silent again. She had said it. She had admitted she knew who they were. She had known about the other will. My father just stared at her, his mouth slightly open. It was in that precise, deafening silence that my phone vibrated in my hand. A new text message, from an unknown number, had appeared on the screen, right below the stop recording button. It was just 2 sentences. "If you open that USB, you will end up like your mother." And below it, an image of a broken plate. The dinner party dissolved into chaos. My father's cousins and their spouses, sensing a scandal far more potent than they were comfortable with, made their excuses and fled, their whispers trailing behind them. Veronica, her face a mask of white-hot rage, pointed a trembling finger at my aunt. "Get out of this house, both of you. You are trespassing." "It's not your house, Veronica," Lisa said, calmly collecting the new will, the letter, the medical file, and the USB drive. She placed them back in the box and snapped the latch shut. My father said nothing. He had collapsed into his chair, his face in his hands, staring at the spilled red wine that looked like blood on the white tablecloth. "Dale!" Veronica shrieked at him. "Are you going to let them do this? Are you going to let her destroy our family with these fabrications?" He looked up, his eyes old and hollow. "They're closed," he whispered. Not to her, but to himself. "You said they were closed. How did you know?" "Get out!" Veronica screamed at us. "We're going," I said. I pulled my phone off the table, stopped the recording, and pocketed it. The thread on the screen was still burning in my mind. If you open that USB, you will end up like your mother. I looked at Veronica. She was cornered, and she was terrified. And she was, I realized, the one who sent that text, or had it sent. She wasn't just a greedy widow. She was a gatekeeper, and she was dangerous. Lisa and I didn't sleep that night. We went to her small, quiet apartment, the one Veronica had always sneered at as the spinster's den. We sat at her kitchen table, the wooden box between us, and we drank black coffee until the sun came up. "Monarch Trail Legal Group," I said, typing the name into my laptop. Veronica had lied. They weren't closed. They had an office, a small, discreet one, in a building downtown that housed accountants and private wealth managers. "We go, now," Lisa said. We were in their lobby by 9 a.m. It was not a grand, marble-filled space like Richard Cole's. It was quiet, expensive, and anonymous. A receptionist looked at us with polite disinterest until Lisa said her name and Martin Keene regarding the Eleanor Hart file. A moment later, a man who looked to be in his late 70s, with a kind face and the sharpest eyes I'd ever seen, emerged from a hallway. "Ms. Monroe, Ms. Snow, I've been expecting this for 7 years. Please, come in." His office was lined with books, not awards. He closed the door. "Tea? Coffee? No? Let's get to it." I had my phone recording on the table. "Mr. Keene," I started, "we have what we believe is my mother's final will, but another will was probated." "The Richard Cole will," Keene said, nodding, his face grim. "Yes, a perversion of justice." He leaned forward. "Ms. Snow, your mother came to me 3 months before her death. She was, as you know, a brilliant woman. She was also terrified. She told me her assistant and her husband's lawyer, Mr. Cole, were managing her affairs with a disturbing amount of enthusiasm. She said she felt foggy, that she was signing things she didn't remember reading." "So you wrote the new will," Lisa said. "We did," Keene confirmed. "The one you hold, it is her final, legally binding testament. When she passed, I was preparing to file it, and then I received a visit from Mr. Richard Cole and Ms. Veronica Hart. They were aggressive." "What did they do?" I asked. "They threatened to countersue. They claimed your mother was not of sound mind. They had letters," he said, his disgust plain, "from her doctors at North River Wellness Group, attesting to her advanced cognitive decline and emotional paranoia. They were going to drag Monarch Trail and your mother's memory through a public, ugly court battle, claiming we had taken advantage of a weak and dying patient to force a new will." Lisa's hand clenched into a fist. "So you backed down?" "No, Ms. Monroe," Keene said, his voice sharp. "We did not. We are not Richard Cole. We do not engage in mudslinging. We protect our clients. Your sister's instructions, should this very event occur, were clear. Do not fight them. Wait. Seal the will. Give it to my sister. Lisa, tell her to wait for the signal. The time will come when the truth is more valuable than the fight." So we sealed it. We have waited. We have watched Ms. Hart and Mr. Cole, and now you are here. The file is open. It was exactly as my mother had planned. She knew she couldn't win a public fight in her weakened state, so she set a trap, a 7-year trap. "The will Veronica used," I said, "the one that gave her everything, it was real?" "Oh, yes," Keene said. "It was a very real, very old will, from 10 years prior, when you were a teenager, before Heartlight Ceramics was an empire, a simple All to my spouse, Will, with a note for your education. It should have been superseded by at least 2 other versions, let alone the final one we hold. But with Cole's influence, and the medical proof from North River, the court was convinced to push it through on an accelerated probate. It was disgustingly efficient. Maddie, my friend, was waiting in her car downstairs. I had called her at dawn. When Lisa and I walked out, I handed her the phone. "Listen to this," I said. She listened to the entire recording. Her face, usually so full of journalistic skepticism, turned pale. "Oh, Aubrey, this isn't just a family dispute. This is a conspiracy, a stolen will, a shady medical group, a rival law firm. What's this Hart Family Integrity Fund?" "I don't know," I said, "but Veronica's been managing it." "We need to go to the studio," I said, a new, cold anger rising in me. The old Heartlight Ceramic Studio, the carriage house behind her house, was a place I had avoided. It was too painful. When we pulled up, the pain was replaced by rage. It was gone. The warm brick and ivy building had been gutted. The windows were enlarged. The old wooden doors replaced with sheets of smoked glass. A large chrome sign hung over the entrance. Sterling Haven Interiors. "She sold it," I whispered. We walked inside. The smell of clay, tea, and warm kilns was gone. It was replaced by the smell of particle board, chemical polish, and expensive, cold minimalism. It was a showroom for high-end furniture, the kind of sterile, joyless stuff my mother had despised. "May I help you?" a saleswoman in a severe black suit asked. "We're just looking," I said, walking through the space. They had torn out the kilns. They had plastered over the brick. They had erased her. In the back, near where the glazing station used to be, I saw it. A few old floor tiles, a different color from the new, polished concrete, and in the grout, a faint stain, a familiar, cobalt blue stain, the color of the Blue Orchard plates. I touched it, as if I could draw some strength from it. "Excuse me," a man's voice said. He was an older man, in a worker's uniform, carrying a crate. "You shouldn't be back here." "I used to work here," I lied. "A long time ago, for Eleanor Hart." The man's face changed. He looked around, then set the crate down. He lowered his voice. You're her daughter, aren't you? You look like her." I nodded. "What they did here was a crime," he whispered, his face tight with anger. "I worked for your mom for 15 years, after she died. That woman, the new wife, she came in like a storm, fired all the old hands, said we were inefficient." "What did she do with the company?" Lisa asked. "Sold it," the man said. "Well, not sold. Worse, she signed some kind of partnership with an investment group, Argent Bridge Capital. They own this place now. Sterling Haven. She signed over the whole Heartlight brand. The name, the designs, everything. For almost nothing. We heard. Just a big lump sum payment." He leaned in closer. "The rumor was, the money didn't even go to the Heartlight Company account. Went to a private one. In her name." "Argent Bridge Capital," Maddie whispered, typing it into her phone. As we walked through the showroom, something caught my eye. A display of dinnerware. It was minimalist, gray, and heavy, but the silhouette, the slight, distinctive curve of the bowl, the way the rim was finished, it was my mother's. It was a design she'd been working on, her modern line, just before she died. But the label on the display didn't say Heartlight. It said Sterling Haven Home. "They stole her work," I said, my voice shaking. I picked up a bowl. "She spent months getting this curve right. They just took it." The fight was back in full force. That afternoon, I received a thick envelope via courier. It was from Richard Cole's law firm. It was not a settlement offer. It was a cease and desist letter. It accused me of slander, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress against Veronica Hart. It warned me that any attempt to disseminate the fabricated documents from the disgraced Monarch Trail legal group would be met with the full force of the law. And then, the final paragraph. Furthermore, given your recent erratic behavior and public outbursts, Ms. Hart is deeply concerned for your mental and emotional well-being. Should this harassment continue, we will be forced to petition the court for a full psychiatric evaluation to determine your fitness to manage your own affairs. It was the same play, the exact same play they had run on my mother. She's unstable. She's paranoid. She's unfit. I was shaking with rage when my phone buzzed. A text from my father. My first instinct was to throw it, but I opened it. It was a screenshot, a single line from a bank statement, an account I didn't recognize. At the top, V, Hart, R, Cole, joint account. Below it, a single text. I don't understand all of this, Aubrey, but this doesn't feel right. Be careful. He was still a coward, but he was a coward with a conscience. He knew. Maddie called me an hour later. Bree, I've got a problem. Argent Bridge Capital? The investors? They're clean, too clean. But I found something else. That Hart Family Integrity Fund from the will? It's real. And Veronica's on the board. So, it's a family fund? No, Bree, it's not. It's a 5103C, a registered charity, for the support of young artists, and you'll never guess who the other major board member is. Who? Veronica, again, under a different name. She's also on the board of a little artisan grant program called the Crescent Arts Initiative. And Crescent's only donor? The Hart Family Integrity Fund. And Crescent's only expenditure? Copyright licensing fees paid directly to Argent Bridge Capital. I sat down. Maddie, what does that mean? It means, she said, her voice grim, your stepmother isn't just a thief. She's a money launderer. She's taking your mother's legacy, washing it through a fake charity, and paying herself for the rights to the designs that Argent Bridge is selling at Sterling Haven. She's not just stealing the past, she's selling it, piece by piece, and getting a tax break for it. The USB drive was on Lisa's coffee table. It felt heavy as a brick. We have to watch it, I said. The threat, the broken plate, it's because Veronica knows what's on it. She knows, or she thinks she knows, Lisa said, her face set. Your mother was recording her last days. Aubrey. She didn't do that so we could be scared into silence. We are not letting this go. We took every precaution. We went to my apartment. We shut off the Wi-Fi. We put our phones in a metal box in the kitchen. I slid the USB into the side of my laptop. The file opened, a series of video clips, time-stamped. It was the studio, my mother's sanctuary. It was horrifying. The first few clips were just her, working, but she was slow, her hands fumbling. She looked drugged. She'd drop a tool, stare at her hands, confused. Then, Veronica would enter. Eleanor, darling, you look exhausted. You've been at this for hours. Time for your medicine. She'd smile at the main camera, the one I knew was there. I don't feel right, Veronica, Mom would slur. It's just the stress. Honey, here. She'd hand her a small paper cup with pills and a glass of water. The doctor said you must take these. Now, let's turn this camera off. All this equipment. It's just more stress. You need to rest. And the main camera feed would cut. But then, a new feed would pop up, a different angle, from a small, hidden camera tucked on a high shelf, disguised among a row of glazed testing pots. My mother. She had filmed her own slow-motion murder. We watched, hearts in our throats, as Veronica would sit with her back to the hidden camera, her voice no longer kind and light, but low and insistent. You need to sign the new invoices. Eleanor, the Sterling Haven contract. We talked about this. Richard Cole is just trying to protect you. Then, the last clip, the day before she died. My mother is at her wheel, but she's not spinning clay. She's just sitting, her head in her hands. She's racked by a terrible, dry cough. Veronica enters. She's not smiling. She looks impatient. Eleanor, We have guests coming. I can't, Mom whispers. I feel so cold. Veronica sighs, a sound of profound annoyance. She goes to the sink and pours a glass of water. She brings it to my mother. Here. Mom takes it, her hand shaking. Veronica stands over her, her hand on my mother's shoulder, not in comfort, but in possession. It will all be over soon, Veronica says, her voice a soft, soothing whisper that makes my blood run cold. You're so tired. You've worked so hard. Don't worry, Eleanor. You'll get to rest. I'll take care of everything. My mother looks up at her, her eyes wide with a dawning, hazy terror. And the clip ends. Lisa and I just sat there, frozen in the silence of the room. We were offline. The laptop was not connected to anything. And then, the screen went black. Not off, black, and new. White letters typed themselves, one by one, onto the dark screen. Some secrets should stay buried. I slammed the laptop shut. The white letters on the black screen burned in my memory. Some secrets should stay buried. It's a remote access Trojan, Lisa said, her voice a strained whisper in the dark room. It had to be, but we're offline. The Wi-Fi is off. It came from the USB, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical shock. It wasn't just a video file, it was a weapon. The threat on my phone. If you open that USB, they knew I would. They were waiting. The next morning, I took the laptop, not to a big box store, but to a tiny, independent repair shop run by a guy Maddie swore was a former white hat hacker. I didn't tell him what I was looking for. I just said it was acting weird and showing messages that weren't real. He called me 3 hours later. Ma'am, he said, his voice buzzing with professional curiosity. You didn't just get a virus. You got a work of art. This is high-level spyware, the kind that activates on a closed system. It's designed to look for a specific trigger, like, say, a video file being played, and then it executes its payload. It wiped the file you watched, and itself. But the interesting part? The part it left behind? It's a keylogger. It's now recording everything you type and sending it out the second you connect to a network. It's also, and this is the really nasty part, designed to piggyback. It was installed from a USB device. The USB from the box, my mother's last message, tainted. I hung up and called Lisa. When I told her, she was silent for a long, terrible moment. Then, she let out a strangled sound. Oh, God, Aubrey, I didn't think. What, Lisa, what? The storage unit, North Shore Storage, about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was having a hard time. My old job. I was between contracts. The bill for the storage unit came due. I was going to be late on the payment. And Veronica? Lisa's voice was thick with self-loathing. She found out. She was so kind. Oh, Lisa, don't you worry about a thing. It's just a silly fee. Give me the key. I'll go down there and pay it for you in person. We'll make a day of it. She was so generous, so helpful. She had my key for an entire afternoon. She hadn't just paid the bill. She'd gone into the locker. She'd found the box. She couldn't open it. The will and letters, sealed by Monarch Trail, were probably locked. But the USB, she, or someone she hired, had taken it, copied it, and put a ticking time bomb inside the original before returning it. She knew what was on the video. She had been waiting for us to watch it. The message on my laptop wasn't a threat from a hacker. It was a personal, triumphant, "I told you so," from Veronica. She was letting us know she was one step ahead, that she had been one step ahead for 7 years. The system wasn't just around Veronica. It was inside our own evidence. The next blow came 2 days later. It arrived in my mailbox at my Lakewood apartment. A thick, cream-colored envelope, embossed with the logo of the North River Wellness Group. It wasn't a bill, it was a letter from a Dr. Alistair Finch, Department of Psychiatry. Dear Ms. Snow, it read, following a formal request from your family concerning your recent erratic and potentially self-harming behavior. We are writing to schedule an immediate psychiatric evaluation. Our goal is to provide the support your family believes you need during this difficult time. Your father, Mr. Dale Hart, has already authorized the evaluation as your next of kin." Attached was a form, and at the bottom, a digital signature, Dale Hart. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial my father's number. He picked up on the fourth ring, his voice wary. "Aubrey?" "You're having me committed," it came out as a choked, furious accusation. "You and Veronica. You're trying to have me declared insane, just like you did to her." "What? What are you talking about? I didn't." "A letter, Dad, from North River Wellness, from a Dr. Finch. You authorized a psych evaluation. You signed the paper." There was a long, terrible silence on his end. I heard him breathing. "Aubrey, I haven't signed anything. I swear to you, I haven't spoken to anyone at North River for years. I don't know any Dr. Finch." He was telling the truth. I could hear the genuine panic in his voice. They had forged his signature. "Alistair Finch," Maddie said, her voice grim over the phone an hour later. I'd called her immediately. "I know that name." "How?" "I've been digging into the Eleanor Hart file, the public probate records. When Richard Cole filed the old will, he had to get the new one, the Monarch Trail will, invalidated. His primary evidence for having it thrown out was a medical declaration, a signed affidavit stating that Eleanor Hart was cognitively impaired, suffering from severe paranoia, and not of sound mind to manage her own affairs or make legal decisions. Guess who signed it? Bree. Dr. Alistair Finch. "The very same," Maddie said. "He's their guy. He's the one who signs the paper that makes the inconvenient women disappear." The system was closing in. The walls were getting tighter. Veronica was no longer just reacting. She was on the attack, using the same playbook that had worked so perfectly 7 years ago. The anonymous text started again, but they were different. They weren't just vague threats. They were proof. "You looked nice in that blue dress at the coffee shop today. 10:15 a.m. Too bad your hands were shaking. Horizon Nest Concepts. That's a brave choice. Hope they like unstable clients. Leaving your apartment at 8:03 p.m.? It's dark out. You should be careful. Aubrey." Someone was watching me, not just digitally, physically. They were tracking my movements. I was in Lakewood, miles from Riverton Hills, but her reach was long. The email from Horizon Nest Concepts, one of my biggest and most reliable freelance clients, came the next day. It was short. "Dear Aubrey, after a review of our current freelancer partnerships, we've decided to move in a different direction. We will be terminating your contract, effective immediately." I called my contact, a project manager named Sarah, who had always loved my work. She sounded terrified. "Aubrey, I'm so sorry. It came from corporate. They said there were concerns." "Concerns? What concerns? My work is on time. My invoices are clean." They said there were community complaints about your social media, your online behavior. Aubrey, what is going on? They said you were unhinged. "I don't have a public social media. Not for my business. I use a private account with maybe 50 friends." I searched my own name, and I found her. Aubrey Snow Designs, a new Instagram, a new Twitter, all created in the last 48 hours. The profile picture was me, a photo stolen from my private accounts, but badly photoshopped. My eyes made to look wider, wilder. The posts were insane. They were long, rambling, all-caps rants about stolen art and shadow conspiracies and people in the walls. There were blurry photos of the Sterling Haven showroom, with red circles and arrows pointing at nothing. There were rants about poisoned water and cheating husbands. It was the online diary of a mad woman. My mad woman. She wasn't just trying to make me look unstable to a doctor. She was making me look unstable to the entire world, to my clients, to my friends. This was Richard Cole's work. It had his stink of legal. sanitized malice all over it. The next day, Maddie called. Her voice was flat. "They got me, Bree, or they got my editor. Cole sent a letter, a real one, threatened to sue the Riverline Daily, the paper's parent company, and me personally, for tortious interference and conspiracy to defame. My editor folded like a cheap suit. I'm officially on leave from the Heart story. He told me to cool it, or I'd be writing about flower shows in the suburbs for the rest of my career. The media was muzzled. My career was under attack. My reputation was being systematically demolished. The final blow came from my own bank, an automated alert. Your accounts have been flagged for suspected fraudulent activity and are temporarily frozen. I called the bank, my heart in my throat, a fraud specialist, in a cold, monotone voice, explained, "Ma'am, we've detected a series of highly unusual microtransactions, multiple small transfers, originating from your checking account, being funneled to an offshore account. I didn't make any transfers. The routing numbers are all linked to a Crescent Arts initiative," the man said, sounding confused. "Ma'am, are you involved in a charity scam?" They hadn't just faked my signature. They hadn't just faked my social media. They were faking my bank records. They were pulling me into their criminal enterprise, painting me not as a victim, but as a disgruntled, unstable accomplice who was trying to get her cut. I was suffocating. I couldn't work. I couldn't get my money. I couldn't trust my own computer. I was being watched. My father called me that night. He was yelling. "What did you do? Aubrey, what did you say?" "What are you talking about?" "My board. The Heartline board. I had an emergency meeting today. They're talking about family reputation, about my unstable daughter who is making dangerous accusations. They think this will affect our city contracts. Aubrey, they're threatening to push me out." "That's Veronica. Dad, that's her network. Argent Bridge, North River, all of them. They're all connected. She's doing this." "Or maybe she's right," he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. "Maybe you are unstable. Maybe you're just making all of this up, trying to destroy all of us because you didn't get what you wanted. You need to stop. Do you hear me? Stop." He hung up. I sat there, in the dark, the city lights of Lakewood blurring outside my window. They had won. They had cut me off from my job, my money, my friends, and my last remaining family. I was alone, just like they had made my mother. 2 days later, there was a knock on my door. It was Aunt Lisa. She looked exhausted, but she was holding the wooden box. I let her in. My father called while she was standing in my living room. I put him on speaker. "Aubrey," he said, his voice small, broken. I'm sorry I yelled. I don't know what to believe. It's okay, Dale," Aunt Lisa said, her voice cutting through his apology. "We're here. Aubrey is here, and I have something for you, something Eleanor left for you." "For me?" His voice was a whisper. Lisa reached into the box. She pulled out a second, smaller envelope, as thick and white as mine had been, but this one was sealed, with the same blue wax, and on the front, in my mother's hand, was a single word. "Dale." "It was in the box the whole time," Lisa said to me, then spoke to the phone. "She left one for you. Dale, I was never to give it to you, unless you were truly lost, I think," she said, her voice softening. "You're truly lost. I'm coming to your office. I'm bringing it to you, and I'm bringing Aubrey." We met him in the sterile, high-rise lobby of Heartline Developments. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Lisa didn't say a word. She just held out the envelope. He took it, his hand trembling. He looked from me to Lisa. He walked over to a window, his back to us, and broke the seal. He was silent for a long time. I couldn't see his face, only his shoulders. They started to shake, silently at first, then in great, heaving sobs. He turned around, the letter clutched in his hand, his face a ruin of tears and horrified realization. He stumbled from the lobby. We followed him. He wasn't crying anymore. He was moving with a terrible, new purpose. He took the elevator to the executive floor, where Veronica had her consulting office. He didn't knock. He slammed the door open. She was in there, on the phone, laughing. She saw his face and her smile died. "Get out," my father said to her startled assistant. He walked to her desk. He was quiet, terrifyingly quiet. He looked at the woman he had chosen, the woman he had believed, the woman who had destroyed his life from the inside out. He raised his hand, the letter still clutched in it, and he said, his voice a low, gravelly rasp that I will never forget, "You didn't just take my wife, you took her life." That confrontation in the Heartline office was the breaking point. Veronica, for the first time, didn't have a script. She was faced with a truth she couldn't gaslight, a man who was no longer her ally. She tried to deny it, to call him hysterical, to use the same words she had used on my mother and me. It didn't work. My father, shattered but resolute, simply walked out, leaving her standing in the middle of her office, exposed. That night, he met Lisa and me at a dark, anonymous hotel bar downtown. It was the kind of place people went when they didn't want to be seen. He looked 10 years older. He slid my mother's letter to him across the table. "Read it," he said, his voice a rasp. "Both of you. You need to know what I ignored." I read it. It was worse than I could have imagined. My mother, in her clear, precise hand, had laid it all out for him. "Dale, my love," it began. "If you are reading this, I am gone, and Veronica has hurt our daughter. I am writing this because I am afraid. I am so tired. She tells me it's the illness, but it's the pills she brings me. She calls them strong sedatives, just to help me sleep. But after I take them, I wake up, and there are papers on my desk. Papers I've signed." My father flinched, as if struck. "She brought me a financial power of attorney." The letter continued. "She said it was just to pay the studio bills while I was sick. I was so foggy. Dale, I signed it. I signed it all. And I think she's doing something with Richard Cole. They keep mentioning the Integrity Fund, but the numbers don't make sense. They're selling things. I think they're selling Heartlight. I think they're selling me." He'd known, not all of it, but he'd suspected. "The letter," he choked. It triggered a memory. From before, a few weeks before Eleanor died. I came home late. I heard Veronica. She was in her office, on the phone. She was yelling." "Who was she yelling at?" Lisa asked, her voice sharp. "A man," my father said, closing his eyes, the memory painful. "She kept saying his name. Graham Pierce. She was arguing about percentages. The percentage on the resort china is not what we agreed on. Graham, it has to be higher." And then she said, "I'm the one taking all the risk here. You have to keep a lid on this. No one can ever connect these accounts." "Graham Pierce," I said, the name clicking. "Argent Bridge Capital. The investors who own Sterling Haven. The man who worked at my mom's studio told me about them." "She was fighting with them," my father whispered. "Not for the company, for her cut." "It's a triangle," Maddie said. "We were in her apartment. The next day, my apartment and Lisa's were compromised. Watched, Maddie's place, the messy, chaotic apartment of a perpetually underpaid journalist, was our new war room. She had taped a huge piece of poster board to her wall. She was drawing lines with a red Sharpie, a true conspiracy board. "It's a perfect closed loop," Maddie explained, her voice alive with the thrill of the story she'd been forced to drop. "I kept digging after my editor shut me down. I used public databases, Argent Bridge Capital." She wrote the name in a box at the top. "Is an investment firm, a shell, but look what they invest in." She drew a line to another box. "North River Wellness Group. They own a 12% stake, a controlling interest. They put their own people on the board." "The doctors who called my mother unstable," I said, the chill settling on my skin. "The ones who tried to call me unstable." "The very same," Maddie said. "And where else does Argent Bridge invest?" She drew another line, to a third box. Sterling Haven Interiors. They don't just invest. They are Sterling Haven. They own it outright. It's their retail front. The company that took over my mother's studio, I said. Exactly. But it's not a triangle yet. It's a V. Here's the part that ties it all together. She drew a circle at the bottom. Our fake charities, the Hart Family Integrity Fund, and the Crescent Arts Initiative. Veronica controls the fund. The fund's only purpose is to donate to Crescent. And Crescent's only expense? Paying Argent Bridge for the rights to my mother's designs, I finished. Bingo, Maddie said. Argent Bridge gets the money. Veronica gets a management fee from the charity and her kickback from Argent Bridge. North River Wellness provides the medical cover to discredit anyone who gets too close. And Sterling Haven sells the stolen goods. It's a machine for turning your mother's art into tax-free cash for all of them. But the contracts, I said, the designs, how could they just take them? Heartlight was my mother's name. Aunt Lisa, who had been watching this, her face pale, spoke for the first time. Because it wasn't just her name, Aubrey. It was yours, too. What? The Blue Orchard plate, the mom's plate, the one she was so famous for. Why do you think it was her favorite? Because it was her first big success. No, Lisa said, her eyes boring into mine. Because it was ours. I was there. Aubrey, you were maybe 7, 8 years old. You were in the studio, helping her. You took one of her sketches of a flower, and you drew all over it. You added little swirls, little dots. You said it needed more life. And she looked at it, and she started to cry. She said, "That's it, baby. That's what it was missing. The final Blue Orchard design. The one that built the company. Those little swirls? That was you." I stared at her, my mind fumbling with a memory so distant it felt like a dream. Me, with a blue crayon, on my mother's drafting table. I remember, Lisa continued, her voice thick. I remember her going to see Richard Cole, the first time, years ago. She was so proud. She showed me the copyright filing. She'd listed the author of the design, Eleanor Hart and Aubrey Snow. Her direct heir. She wanted to make sure you were always tied to it. I looked at the board. The whole system, the whole machine, was built on a lie. But the new contract, I whispered, the pieces clicking into place. The one Veronica signed with Argent Bridge. Would have had to erase you, Maddie said, her eyes wide. She couldn't just steal from Eleanor. She had to steal from you. She didn't just erase Eleanor's name, Lisa said. She wrote Heartlight Ceramics as a brand entity, a faceless company. She cut the cord. She severed the art from the artists, from the family. Maddie was on her laptop. I need proof, a copy of that contract, a copy of the charity's grant applications. I can find the applications, I said, suddenly remembering. Maddie, that fake Instagram account, the unhinged one, it had a link in the bio, a link to the Crescent Arts Initiative application portal. They were rubbing it in our faces. I went to the site. It was all there, a glossy, beautiful website, full of pictures of sponsored artists and a list of success stories. I clicked on the names. They were all familiar. The son of my father's business partner, the niece of a city councilwoman, all the rich kids from Riverton Hills. Where are the real artists? I said. Maddie knew. She'd been a lifestyle reporter for years. She made one call, to a junior-level admin at Crescent, a young woman Maddie had once interviewed for a different story, someone who hated her job. The woman agreed to talk, off the record, in a noisy cafe. She was terrified. We have 2 stacks, she whispered, her hands shaking so much her coffee sloshed. There's the priority stack. That's the list of names Ms. Hart sends over. Their applications are just a formality. They get the money, always. And the other stack? Maddie asked, her voice gentle, her phone recording on the table. We call it The slush pile, the admin said, her eyes filling with tears. It's the real artists, people from poor neighborhoods, people with no connections. They send in God. They send in amazing work, and we're instructed to file them, which means a shredder or a box in the basement. None of them have ever gotten a dime. It's just a PR front for the rich. I sat there, listening to the recording, and I felt the last of my grief curdle into a pure, cold rage. This wasn't just about my mother's money. This was about a system that classified people, my mother, the artists in the slush pile, me. We were just material to be processed. We were the clay, and they were the ones who decided what value we had. We were back in Maddie's apartment, the red string board looking more like a spider's web, when my father called. "I've done it," he said. His voice was low, terrified, but resolute. "I did what you asked." He was haunted, the image of me, at 19, being slapped for crying over that plate. It had finally broken through his wall of denial. He had to atone. "What did you do, Dad?" "My office," he said. "Veronica's consulting office. It's on the Heartline network. I have a young man in the IT department. His mother, she's an artist. She applied to the Crescent Initiative. Twice. She was filed. He's not happy. He agreed to help. He's making a copy, a full mirror image of her hard drive, as we speak." An hour later, a thumb drive, passed from a terrified IT tech to my father, to Aunt Lisa, was in Maddie's laptop. And there it was. Not hidden, not encrypted. She'd been so arrogant, so sure she was protected. She hadn't even bothered to cover her tracks. The emails, hundreds of them, between Veronica and Richard Cole. Cole, "The Monarch Trail will is a problem. It's too clean. We can't fight it on merits." Veronica, "Then we fight the testator. Get Finch to write the affidavit. She's paranoid. She's unstable. We'll bury it in probate." Cole, "Done. Now. The assets. Argent Bridge is ready. But the contract has to be airtight. We have to sever the Eleanor Hart name from the Heartlight brand. We'll create a new LLC. She can sign it over." Veronica, "She won't sign. She's getting suspicious. She's hiding papers." Cole, "Then she doesn't need to sign. You have the power of attorney. The one she signed when she was lucid. Remember? Use it." And then, the most recent ones, from 2 days ago. Cole, "The daughter is a problem. The aunt, too. They're digging." Veronica, "She's just like her mother. Hysterical. Send the cease and desist. Start the file with Dr. Finch. Prepare the psych file on Aubrey Snow. We'll use the same play. It worked the first time." I looked at the words. Prepare the psych file. I was just a carbon copy of my mother. A problem to be managed. Filed and buried. I stood up. I walked out of Maddie's apartment. I didn't know where I was going, but my feet took me there. Back to Riverton Hills. Back to the studio. I stood outside the Sterling Haven showroom, closed for the night. I pressed my hand to the cold glass. Inside, the lights were low, illuminating the sterile, gray furniture. I could just see it. In the back, the small patch of old tile, the faint blue stain. My mother's plate, my mother's legacy, my copyright. She hadn't just left me a will or a box of secrets. She'd left me a message. Don't let them decide your value. I wasn't going to be silenced. I wasn't going to be filed. I was 19 years old again, in the kitchen, my cheeks stinging. But this time, I wasn't going to cry. This time, I was going to fight. And this time, I was going to burn their entire rotten system to the ground. Veronica, in her arrogance, gave us the weapon. About a week after the confrontation, her name was all over the Riverton Hills Society pages. She was announcing the crown jewel of her philanthropic season, a grand charity auction to be held at the Crestline Manor, the most exclusive and expensive hotel in the county. The event was a fundraiser for the Crescent Arts Initiative. And the centerpiece of the auction, the item used on all the glossy invitations? My mother's work, a complete 50-piece dinner service from the Heartlight Ceramics Blue Orchard collection. She's not just laundering the money, Maddie said, throwing the invitation onto her coffee table. She's laundering her reputation. She's using your mother's art as a social disinfectant. She's turning the very thing she stole into a PR campaign to make her untouchable. We were in Maddie's war room apartment, the red string board now so complex it looked like a diagram of a failing universe. Then that's where we do it, I said. The words came out before I'd even fully formed the thought. Maddie and Lisa looked at me. She's building a stage, I said, the idea taking shape, cold and hard and clear. She's inviting every powerful person in this county, all her allies, all the people who benefit from her system. She's putting them all in one room, putting a spotlight on herself, and handing us a microphone. We're not going to let a platform like that go to waste. Maddie's eyes lit up. A heist movie, she whispered, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across her face. A whistleblower heist. I love it. We don't just leak the story. Bree, we perform it. A live, primetime takedown. The plan began to form, piece by interlocking piece. First, the video. We can't use the USB, Lisa said, pointing to my laptop, which was still sitting in a corner, now considered contaminated. It's a trap. No, I said, picking up the infected laptop. The file itself isn't the trap. The drive is. She wanted us to see the video, to know she was in control, that she'd bugged her own evidence. She wanted us to be scared. So we go to the tech guy, Maddie said, grabbing her phone. The one who found the spyware on your laptop? The tech, Jordan Hale, was not just a guy. We met him in a noisy server room at the back of a university library. It turned out he wasn't just a repairman. He was a former broadcast engineer for a local news station. Was, being the operative word. I tried to tell them our station manager was taking kickbacks from a local politician to run puff pieces, Jordan said, his voice flat as he examined my laptop. They didn't just fire me, they blacklisted me. I've been fixing student laptops for 2 years. I hate people who abuse the system. He looked up, his eyes sharp. You said you have a broadcast problem? We have a video file, on a compromised drive, that we need to extract, clean, and project onto a 50-foot screen in a hotel ballroom without anyone knowing we're doing it. Maddie said. Jordan's mouth twitched. Okay, that's not a broadcast problem. That's a ludicrously fun problem. He took the laptop. I can pull the file in a sandbox, clean it, strip the malware, put it on a new drive. But how are you getting it on the screen? The Crestline Manors AV is a closed system. They're not going to let you just plug in a USB. That, I said, is where you come in. We don't want to use their system. We want to hijack it. Jordan was in. He said he could build a rogue transmitter, a simple, powerful device that could override the hotel's projector feed from inside the room. He'd pose as an audio technician for the auction's string quartet. Second, the inside man. I called my father. He was living in a hotel, a ghost of a man. She's having a party. Dad, an auction. I know, he whispered. She sent me an honorary co-host invitation, as if... We need you to go, I said. Aubrey, I can't be in the same room with her. You have to. We need you to be our Trojan horse. You are the grieving, supportive husband, confused by his hysterical daughter. You are the man she still thinks she controls. You have to be there, at her side, so she never, ever sees us coming. And, I added, we need the guest list, the full one, and the media list. He was terrified, but the guilt of his silence, the guilt from my mother's letter, was stronger. He agreed. He would play the part of the broken, repentant husband, right up until the moment the blade went in. The full, confirmed list of attendees was in Maddie's inbox the next day. Third, the final pieces of evidence, Aunt Lisa went back to the North Shore storage unit. Your mother's code, My name on the lease. It wasn't just for the box. Aubrey. She returned with a thin, leather-bound portfolio. Not a will, not a legal document. It was a manuscript, an unpublished collection of my mother's writings. Part journal, part artist's manifesto. I read it, and my mother's voice, not the sick, drugged one, but her real voice, came flooding back. She wrote about her loneliness, about feeling like a ghost in her own house, about her art being her only witness, and one line, on the last page. They can buy the plates, but they cannot buy the story. They can steal the design, but they cannot steal the hands that made it. One day, the work itself will have to speak. The clay will hold the truth. She knew, I whispered. She knew it would come to this. Lisa pulled one more thing from her purse, a small micro-cassette recorder. From the box, I didn't know what it was. It's her, talking. I think it's her last words. We now had our arsenal, the clean video, the 2 wills, the medical reports, the emails, the bank records from the fake charity, and now, my mother's own journal and her final recorded words. We began to orchestrate the heist itself. Maddie, sidelined from the Riverline Daily, went rogue. She wrote the entire story, a 15,000-word masterpiece of investigative journalism, complete with the emails, the bank records, the whole triangular diagram of fraud. She preloaded it onto the Daily server. Her access hadn't been revoked yet, set to go live with a single click. But I'm not just relying on them, she said. The second I hit publish, this entire file is also going to 3 different legal ethics blogs, 2 art world watchdog groups, and the New York Times. This won't just be a local scandal. This will be a national story. My father, now our most effective agent, made the next move. He took a package, a curated selection of the most damning emails between Veronica and Richard Cole, the 2 wills, and the St. August medical report, and he did not give it to the police chief, who played golf with Richard Cole. He gave it to a young, hungry, and famously unbuyable assistant district attorney in the Ridge County prosecutor's office, a woman named Anya Sharma, who was making a name for herself by taking on rich guy corruption. He's ensuring the law is in the room with us, Lisa said, a new, cold respect in her voice. He's making sure that when the story breaks, the system has to act. The night before the auction, we all met in Jordan's server room, our last strategy session. This is the plan, I said, pacing the small, hot room. The auction begins at 7, speeches at 8, the main auction at 8:30. Veronica, according to Dad's intel, is saving the mom's plate collection for the grand finale, around 9:15. That's our window. Jordan will be in place by 6, wired in with the musicians, Maddie said, reading from her timeline. He'll have a direct line of sight to the main projectors. I'll be at the back of the room, I said. Aunt Lisa, you'll be at your table, near the front. You'll have the new box. This new box was not the old wooden one. It was a cold, hard metal document case. Inside, the Monarch Trail will, the St. August medical report, a hard copy of the bank transfers, and the new, clean USB drive, plus a small audio player with my mother's last words. At 9:15, I continued, when the auctioneer introduces the Blue Orchard set, I start walking. I walk to the stage. That's Jordan's cue. The second she's on that stage, I hit the override, Jordan said, tapping his transmitter. Their feed from the auction laptop dies, and my feed takes over, the video from the studio, on every screen. The second the video hits, I hit publish, Maddie said, her hand hovering over her own laptop. The story goes live to the world. And as the video plays, I looked at Lisa. You stand up, you walk to the stage, you open the metal box, and you hand the evidence, piece by piece, to the highest-ranking official in the room, who, according to Dad's list, will be sitting at table 2. What about security? Lisa asked. They'll come for me, I said. They'll cut my mic. That's why I'm not using their mic. I'll have my own. I pointed to a small, powerful wireless mic Jordan had built. But they'll tackle me. They'll stop me. That's why my speech isn't the point. What's the contingency? Jordan asked. They'll cut the power. They cut the projector. My article is already out, Maddie said. The story is in the wind. If they kick us out, I said. Jordan, you go live from the lobby. You have your press pass. Maddie, you go live on your phone. You open the court of public opinion right there on the sidewalk. We were ready. That night, I sat in my small apartment. I'd been practicing my speech. I went over it again and again. How to connect the dots. How to tell them that at 19, I was slapped for crying over a plate. And how that single act of violence was the key that unlocked a vast, criminal enterprise. How my mother's legacy was systematically broken down, monetized, and laundered by a network of the very people who would be in that room, sipping champagne. Lisa's words came back to me. This isn't just for your mother, Aubrey. It's for the girl in the slush pile. It's for the IT tech's mother. It's for every person this system has ever classified as unstable, unimportant, or in the way. Don't let your anger make you lose. Let your righteousness make you win. I had one plate left, the first one I had ever made with my mother. A clumsy, lopsided little bowl that she had kept on her desk. I picked it up. It was the only thing I had taken from the house that day. I looked at the small, flawed piece of ceramic. Tomorrow, Mom, I whispered to the empty room. Tomorrow. I'm doing what you couldn't. I'm making the work speak. The Crestline Manor was a cathedral of glass and light. The ballroom was overflowing with the most powerful people in Riverton Hills, their diamonds and designer gowns glittering under the soft, golden light of a dozen chandeliers. It smelled of expensive perfume and limitless, complacent wealth. And at the center of it all was Veronica. She was magnificent, a predator in her element. She wore a stunning emerald green gown that set off her blonde hair and flawless skin. She stood at the grand entrance, greeting senators, bank presidents, and the heads of every major board in the city. My father, looking pale and ghostly in his tuxedo, stood just behind her right shoulder. He was playing his part. Veronica was the picture of the strong, grieving widow, bravely channeling her personal tragedy into public good. Thank you for coming, she'd murmur, grasping a hand. Eleanor, my Eleanor, would have been so moved to see her work supporting so many young artists. I walked in at 8:15. As the main crowd was moving from the cocktail hour into the ballroom, I wore a simple, sleeveless black dress. It was elegant, but it was a whisper in a room of shouts. As I passed the check-in table, I saw the whispers start. That's the daughter, the one who, the unstable one. I thought she'd been disowned. What is she doing here? Veronica saw me. Her eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second, but her smile never wavered. In a move of calculated theater, she glided away from a congressman and came toward me, her arms outstretched. Aubrey, darling, she said, loud enough for everyone around us to hear. She pulled me into a stiff, cold hug, her perfume choking me. I am so glad you decided to come. I knew you'd see reason. She was framing me, the prodigal daughter, the wild child, brought back into the fold, forgiven by the gracious matriarch. She kept her hand on my shoulder, a gesture that looked loving but was all possession, steering me toward a small, undesirable table at the very back of the ballroom. You sit here, darling. Just enjoy the evening. I sat. From my vantage point, I could see everything. I saw Aunt Lisa, elegant in a navy blue suit, already seated at her designated table near the front, the metal document case at her feet. I saw Jordan Hale, disguised in the black-on-black uniform of the AV crew, fiddling with a soundboard near the string quartet, his back to the room, and I saw Maddie, in the press observation balcony, her laptop open, her face a mask of intense focus. The auction began. The auctioneer, a fast-talking man with a slick tuxedo, started with the smaller items, vases, small sculptures. Each time, he would boom, a genuine Heartlight original from the visionary mind of Eleanor Hart. And with each slam of the gavel, the name Heartlight sounded more hollow, more meaningless. It was just a brand, a label on a product, vacuum-packed and sold off by the woman who had destroyed the artist. My mother's name was being swallowed, digested by Veronica's flawless, smiling performance. I watched the clock, 8:45, 9 o'clock. My heart was a cold, heavy drum against my ribs. At 9:15, exactly as planned, Veronica herself walked onto the stage. The auctioneer stepped back, bowing to her. "Thank you all," she said, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "Thank you for your incredible generosity. Now, for our final and most special item of the night." On the two massive screens flanking the stage, a photo appeared, a professional, beautifully lit shot of the Blue Orchard dinner set, my mother's plate. "This is not just a dinner service," Veronica said, her hand on her heart. "This is family. This is the very first full set from the Blue Orchard collection, the design that started it all, for the Hart family. This set was a symbol of every happy dinner, every celebration, every moment of love we shared." Her eyes scanned the crowd, and I could feel the practiced, fraudulent tears welling. "This plate," she whispered, "is a symbol of the happiness that Eleanor Hart brought into our home, and it is my greatest, most personal joy to offer it to you now, so that it can continue to fund the next generation of artists, in her name." The lie was so profound, so complete, it was almost beautiful. It hung in the air, thick and sweet as poison. I felt the old familiar sting behind my eyes, the memory of a slap in a cold kitchen, a symbol of happiness. "We will start the bidding at $50,000, the auctioneer boomed. The bids flew. 75,000, 100,000, 150,000. It was a feeding frenzy. The elite of Riverton Hills fighting over a piece of my mother's happiness. $200,000, the auctioneer shouted. "Do I hear 225? Going once. I stood up. I started to walk. My steps were silent on the thick carpet. At first, no one noticed. Just a woman in a black dress walking toward the stage. A few people at the tables I passed turned to look, annoyed at the interruption. The auctioneer's voice faltered. "Going twice." I was at the steps of the stage. I put my hand on the railing. "Stop." My voice wasn't a shout, but in the small, wireless mic Jordan had given me, it was a command. The room's speakers carried it. The auctioneer froze, his gavel in the air. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice clear and amplified. "But that plate didn't bring me happiness." I walked up the steps. A spotlight, confused, swung and found me. 200 faces turned. A sea of bewildered, annoyed expressions. "That plate," I said, walking to the center of the stage, "was a witness. It was a witness to the exact moment my family started to lie." "Aubrey!" Veronica's voice was a sharp hiss, but the smile was still plastered on her face, a grotesque mask of concern. "Darling, what are you doing? Are you unwell?" She was already planting the seed. "She's unstable." "I'm very well, Veronica," I said, turning to her. "I'm just correcting the record." That was Jordan's cue. The two massive screens on either side of the stage flickered. The glossy, perfect image of the Blue Orchard plate vanished. It was replaced by the grainy, time-stamped footage from a hidden camera. My mother's studio. "What is this?" someone in the front row demanded. "It's a home movie," I said, as the room watched my mother, sick and frail, her hands fumbling with her clay. A story about the real value of this family art. "Get her off the stage," Veronica hissed to a security guard at the side. But as the guard moved, a new voice cut through the room. "I don't think you should—" Aunt Lisa was standing. She was holding the metal document case. "This," she said, her voice amplified by a second mic Jordan had live, "is Eleanor Hart. If the truth is distorted—" She walked, with slow, deliberate grace, toward the stage. The security guard hesitated, caught between Veronica's silent, furious command and this new, bizarre interruption. On the screens, the video played. Veronica, my Veronica, entered the studio. Eleanor, darling, you look exhausted. Time for your medicine. The room murmured. This was intimate. This was uncomfortable. This is an invasion of privacy, Veronica shrieked, lunging toward the AV booth. Turn it off. Turn this off now. I've locked the system. Jordan's voice came over the speaker, calm and clear. The feed is not in this room. It's on an independent broadcast. In fact, it's streaming live to about 10,000 people so far. Veronica froze. Her face, for the first time, showed pure, unadulterated terror. At the same moment, in the balcony, Maddie hit publish. Across the ballroom, 100 phones, set to silent, began to vibrate. Guests, drawn by the irresistible pull of a notification, glanced down, and they saw the headlines. Forged will. Fake charity. The dark truth behind the Heartlight empire. Veronica Hart accused of fraud. Medical abuse. On the video, I said, my voice commanding the room, you see a devoted assistant, but in this box, Aunt Lisa was now on stage, opening the metal case. We have the truth. Lisa, with the precision of a surgeon, laid out the evidence. One, she said, holding up a document. The real last will and testament of Eleanor Hart, from Monarch Trail Legal Group, naming her daughter, Aubrey Snow, as her heir. 2, she held up another, the medical report from St. August Mercy Clinic, showing Eleanor Hart was being systematically and atypically sedated. 3, she held up a sheaf of papers, the contracts and bank records, showing how Veronica Hart, using a fraudulent will and a forged power of attorney, laundered her own sister-in-law's art through a fake charity, the Crescent Arts Initiative, in partnership with Argent Bridge Capital. A man in a dark suit at a front table, Graham Pierce, stood up and began to walk, very quickly toward the exit. And finally, I said, the rest of the video. On the screen, the main camera cut. The hidden camera feed began. The room watched, in horrified silence, as Veronica's voice changed, as she bullied my mother into signing papers. They watched as she brought her the glass of water. They heard her say it. It will all be over soon. You'll get to rest. I'll take care of everything. A woman in the front row gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. Veronica was a cornered animal. She's lying. They're all lying. It's photoshopped. It's... Then there's one last witness, I said. I turned to the wings, where my father stood, his face ashen, looking like a dead man walking. I held out the microphone. Dad, please, tell them the truth. Tell them you were silent. Tell them what you saw. He walked onto the stage. He took the mic. His hand was shaking so badly, I had to help him hold it. He looked at Veronica. She's right, he choked out. I was silent. I let it happen. I saw her hit my daughter for crying over one of these plates. I signed papers I didn't read. I let her. Oh, God. I let her. The ballroom erupted. This was no longer a party. It was a public execution. Guests were flooding toward the exits, desperate not to be associated with the scandal. But a new group was pushing in. Reporters, alerted by Maddie's blast, were forcing their way past the hotel's overwhelmed security. Other guests, the ones who were staying, had their phones out, live streaming the chaos, their own commentary adding to the community trial. Veronica looked frantically for an escape. 2 men in dark, expensive suits, Argent Bridge security, were moving toward her, trying to flank her, to get her out a side door, to cut their losses. This way, Ms. Hart, quickly. They were almost at the door, a small, private exit. But the door opened before they reached it. Standing in the doorway were 2 uniformed police officers, and behind them, a woman in a sharp, dark suit, holding a badge, Assistant District Attorney Anya Sharma. Veronica Hart? She said, her voice not needing a microphone. I believe you. Mr. Graham Pierce and Mr. Richard Cole, who is currently being detained, have some documents we need to discuss. Veronica stopped. Her face, for one brief, glorious second, was completely, utterly blank. The calculations had stopped. The script was gone. My father had not just sent them the link to the live stream. He had sent them a copy of every piece of evidence and a full, signed confession of his own complicity. An hour before the auction began, he had, in his own way, finally set the trap. The police officers stepped forward, past the glittering, untouched mom's plate, and put their hands on her arm. The grand ballroom of the Crestline Manor, which had been a stage for Veronica's triumph, became a processing center for her crimes. Assistant District Attorney Sharma was efficient, cold, and utterly unimpressed by the glittering gowns and tuxedos. Her team, who had been waiting in the hotel's business center, moved in. We have warrants, Sharma announced to the stunned, silent room, for the immediate seizure of all records, digital and physical, from the Crescent Arts Initiative, the Hart Family Integrity Fund, and all related financial accounts managed by Ms. Veronica Hart, Mr. Graham Pierce, and Heartline Developments. Veronica, her face a mask of waxy disbelief, finally found her voice. It was the one I remembered from my childhood, the one she used when she wanted to sound like a victim, wounded by the cruelty of the world. I don't understand, she said, her voice trembling, looking at Anya Sharma as if she were a particularly slow waitress. These are my sister-in-law's lies. She's always been jealous. This is a family dispute. We'll be taking your phone and your laptop, Ms. Hart, one of the officers said, already holding a forensics bag. This is ridiculous, Veronica shrieked. You have no proof, just the words of a hysterical, unstable girl. Anya Sharma didn't even blink. She held up a small, clear plastic bag. Inside was a single thumb drive. We also have a full mirror image of your office hard drive, Ms. Hart, courtesy of an IT tech whose mother's art you've had filed in a basement for 2 years. We have the emails. We have the drafts of the emails. We have it all. The fight drained out of her. It was a physical thing, like watching a statue crumble. The mask of the elegant philanthropist, of the long-suffering wife, of the concerned stepmother. It all just fell away, and what was left was small and ugly and terrified. The real show began the next morning. Maddie called me, her voice giddy. Bree, turn on the news, Channel 4. I did, and there he was, Richard Cole. He wasn't in his bespoke Italian suit. He was in a rumpled shirt from the day before, his hands cuffed behind his back, being led from his gleaming marble and glass office by 2 detectives. The press, alerted by Maddie's story, which had now been picked up nationally, was a frenzied swarm. The headline on the news ticker was almost poetic. Prominent attorney arrested. The lawyer who adjusted wills faces fraud and medical forgery charges. They were using his own words, the ones from the emails, against him. The preliminary hearings began. It was a blur of depositions and motions. I was the star witness. I sat in a cold, fluorescent-lit courtroom, and I told them everything. I told them about being 19 and the sting of a slap in my mother's kitchen. I told them about the ghost call from the disconnected phone line. I told them about the faked psychiatric evaluation. I told them about the bank accounts and the fake social media profiles. For the first time in my life, I told my story, and the people in charge, they believed me. They called Dr. Alistair Finch to the stand. He was a small, nervous man, his expensive suit now looking cheap under the harsh courtroom lights. The prosecutor, Sharma, was surgical. Dr. Finch, you signed an affidavit 7 years ago, declaring Eleanor Hart cognitively impaired and paranoid. Is that correct? I signed a medical opinion, yes, based on reports and an observation. Observation by whom, doctor? Sharma asked, walking slowly toward him. Did you ever, in fact, meet Eleanor Hart? Finch paled. I had consultations with her primary caretaker. With Veronica Hart, Sharma clarified. So, you never spoke to the patient yourself? It was not necessary. The evidence of her instability, it was all provided by the family. The letters, the reports of her behavior. You are telling this court, Sharma said, her voice dangerously soft, that you declared a woman legally insane, incapable of managing her own multi-million-dollar estate, based on hearsay from the one person who stood to inherit that entire estate? You didn't find that a conflict of interest? Finch's career was over in that moment. North River Wellness Group was next. The entire network began to unravel, like a badly woven tapestry. Argent Bridge Capital, the big, bad investment firm, was suddenly facing a federal investigation for its part in the money laundering scheme. They tried to cut Veronica and Graham Pierce loose, claiming they were rogue partners, but the emails showed they were the engine, and Veronica was just the conductor. Sterling Haven Interiors was shut down, its assets frozen, and the Crescent Arts Initiative. All those priority families, the sons and daughters of the Riverton Hills elite who had taken the grant money, they were all scrambling, returning the funds, issuing press releases about how they were shocked and appalled to learn they were part of a criminal fraud. It was a bonfire of the vanities. And then, the final judgment. The civil court case, the judge, a no-nonsense older woman, took all of 2 hours to deliver her verdict. The probated will, filed by Richard Cole, was declared null and void, a product of undue influence, criminal conspiracy, and medical fraud. The Monarch Trail will, my mother's real will, was entered as the final, binding testament. Just like that, it was over. The Riverton Hills House, Heartlight Ceramics, the Hart Family Integrity Fund, they were all returned, co-managed by me and Aunt Lisa. Veronica's criminal trial was next. She faced a mountain of charges: fraud, forgery, money laundering, abuse of a dependent adult. She tried one last, desperate play. She tried to take a deal, to flip, to blame it all on Graham Pierce and Argent Bridge. But the evidence, as Anya Sharma had said, was too clean. The emails, the bank records, and most of all, the video. The video from the hidden camera. It showed one person, and one person only, holding that glass of water. It showed one person whispering in my mother's ear. She wasn't a pawn. She was the queen. She had been the mastermind all along. I saw her one last time, in the hallway of the courthouse, after she had been found guilty on all counts, awaiting sentencing. She was in a cheap suit, her hair flat, the expensive blonde highlights growing out. She looked like she'd been run over. She saw me, and for a second, that old familiar venom returned to her eyes. "You must be so proud," she spat, her voice a dry rasp. "You ruined this entire family, you tore it all down, all for a few stupid plates." I stopped. I looked at her, and I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, just a profound, cold pity. "No, Veronica," I said, my voice quiet and clear. "I didn't. I saved this family. From you. You're the one who thought it was all so worthless. You'd sell it all off for a few stupid contracts." I walked away. My father's atonement was public and painful and real. He had to testify. He had to sit on the stand and admit, under oath, to his own weakness, his own cowardice, his silence. He pleaded guilty to his own charges of complicity, and his testimony against Veronica earned him a lighter sentence: probation and 5,000 hours of community service. He resigned from Heartline Developments in disgrace, but he wasn't done. He took the letter my mother had written him, the one that had saved him, and he had it framed. He sold his condo, his cars, everything. He poured all of his own money into the real Hart Family Integrity Fund, and he, and Aunt Lisa, and I began the real work. We rebuilt the studio. We tore down the cold, sterile glass walls of Sterling Haven. We put the brick and the warm wood back. We installed new kilns. And we didn't call it Heartlight Ceramics. We called it Eleanor and Daughter Studio. Our first act was to go into the basement of the Crescent Arts Initiative, which we now owned, and pull out the slush pile. We found the IT tech's mother. We found hundreds of others. And our first exhibition wasn't our work. It was theirs. Maddie's story on the artists of the slush pile won her a national award. She wasn't writing about flower shows anymore. Her investigation had sparked a whole chain reaction, a truth and reconciliation movement in the art world, with other artists and patrons coming forward, demanding transparency and charity. And in the center of that first exhibition, in the reborn studio, we placed one single item, not for sale, not for auction, not for a price. My mother's plate. It sat on a simple wooden pedestal under a single, soft light, and beneath it, a small brass plaque. It didn't have a name. It just had her words, the ones from her journal. True value isn't in the price paid, but in the story it holds. Tonight I'm sitting in the kitchen, in the Riverton Hills house. It's my house now, our house. It's quiet. The ghosts are still here, but they're not angry anymore. The plate is in front of me, the one I was once slapped for daring to cry over. I'm not crying. That plate, it was a witness. It was a trigger. It was a weapon. It was a symbol of everything I had lost. And now, it's a symbol of everything we took back. My mother's voice, her art, her legacy, and my own. If you are listening to this, and you have ever been told that your pain is too much, that your grief is a performance, that what you feel is unstable or hysterical or inconvenient, please remember this. Remember that there are things that hold the truth. A plate, a song, a faded letter in a box. Your story is valid, your pain is real, and it is waiting for you to be brave enough to stand up, just like my Aunt Lisa did, and open that box, and show the truth to the entire world. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm so grateful to have you here. Please, comment below and let me know where in the world you're listening from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to support more stories like this, please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that like button so more people can find this story.